April 12, 2006, New York City. A premier Manhattan auction house concludes a historic weekend, netting a record-breaking $24 million from a single private wine cellar. The ultra-wealthy buyers openly celebrated. They believed they had purchased impossibly rare mid-century French vintages from the world's most exclusive estates. The entire multi-million-dollar inventory was a physical mirage, mixed just days prior in a suburban kitchen sink. At the center of the phenomenon was Rudy Kurniawan, a mysterious young Indonesian living in Los Angeles. Kurniawan possessed what leading critics described as a savant-level palate, capable of identifying rare vintages instantly in blind tastings. High society billionaires instantly accepted him, handing him the definitive nickname Dr. Conti. By 2006, Kurniawan transitioned from a prominent buyer to the market's premier supplier. He single-handedly drove the luxury wine market to unprecedented financial heights. But the profits were a complete physical fabrication. Kurniawan was not sourcing pristine historical cellars. He had simply discovered a profound structural loophole that allowed him to manufacture history while reporting fictional authenticity back to the elite art and wine world. To maintain an unverified multi-million-dollar fraud against the world's leading experts, Kurniawan weaponized a critical vulnerability in the luxury asset market. In the elite wine industry, valuation relies entirely on subjective taste and unverified consensus. Auction house experts and billionaires blindly assumed that a bottle was genuine because it was presented by a famous collector, completely bypassing direct scientific verification. Kurniawan exploited this absolute laziness by building a literal counterfeit production line inside his home in Arcadia, California. The internal logistics were fastidiously organized. Kurniawan did not possess a secret supply of ancient European wines. Instead, he systematically retrieved empty, genuine vintage bottles from the elite restaurants where his wealthy friends dined, ensuring the physical glass was historically accurate. Inside his kitchen laboratory, Kurniawan manipulated the senses through precise chemical blending. He purchased cheap young California red wines and basic French table varieties, mixing them together in precise ratios to mimic the specific flavor profile of rare, historic masterpieces. He poured these modern concoctions into the empty vintage glass, corked them using a manual machine, and artificially aged the packaging. He ordered thousands of high-resolution counterfeit labels, using cheap rubber stamps to print fake vintage dates, and coated the finished paper with cheap tea bags to artificially simulate decades of cellar dust. The architecture of the deception sustained itself for nearly a decade because elite critics frequently praised Kurniawan's fakes as sublime, completely blind to the reality that they were drinking cheap table wine mixed in a kitchen. The system finally shattered due to a fatal, logical oversight in Kurniawan's historical manufacturing. April 25, 2008, New York City. During an elite auction, Kurniawan offered a highly anticipated lot of rare Clos Saint-Denis wines from the prestigious Domaine Ponceau estate, dating back to 1945. Sitting in the audience was Laurent Ponceau, the actual head of the historic French vineyard. Ponceau looked at the auction catalog and realized the math had completely collapsed. His family estate had not produced or bottled a single drop of that specific wine until the year 1982. Kurniawan had accidentally manufactured a historical impossibility, a 30-year paper trail for an asset that did not exist in the real world. Ponceau stood up, halted the auction, and forced the immediate withdrawal of the fraudulent lots. The FBI's art crime team launched a massive federal investigation. Forensic investigators bypassed the subjective tasting notes of critics, tracing the modern chemical ink on the labels and the industrial glue holding the fake vintage foil together. The illusion finally fractured when federal authorities executed a surprise morning raid on Rudy Kurniawan's Arcadia residence. The search uncovered an unvarnished industrial counterfeiting laboratory. FBI agents seized thousands of fraudulent wine labels, hundreds of loose corks, formula notations scribbled on kitchen counters, and rows of cheap California red wine waiting to be blended into historic French masterpieces. In December 2013, Kurniawan stood trial in a Manhattan federal court. He was found guilty of multiple counts of mail and wire fraud, receiving a 10-year federal prison sentence. The Rudy Kurniawan scandal proved that the ultimate vulnerability of an elite society is not a complex market shift. It is a single individual who is handed absolute trust by an industry that values the illusion of status over physical reality, proving that an empire of taste can be entirely dismantled by a single line of unmonitored chemistry.